What's up, everybody? Anthony Cosenza here. This is the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast, part of the Cincy Jungle Podcast Network. Happy Monday to you all. Happy to be with you talking some Bengals football, some NFL news, a lot of stuff hitting the wire, not only in the form of draft visits, not only in the form of Bengals starting workouts, but another quarterback contract domino has fallen, and things should be shaping up pretty clearly for the Joe Burrow extension that we're all waiting for. We're still waiting for a potential T. Higgins extension too. We thought that may be coming here in the last handful of days, last week, that sort of thing. We'll see what happens there. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza. Going to run through, I may be joined by a special guest here. I don't know for sure. We'll see. But going to run through a number of different news happenings as it goes with the Cincinnati Bengals. We try and do a show like this every once a week, and obviously when pertinent news hits the wire, we want to bring all that to you, bring you a little bit of a breakdown, but really kind of catch you up on things is a bit more what we try to. Hey, New Zealand, look at that, Stephen from New Zealand hanging out with us. Gotta love that. Appreciate that, man. Worldwide. OBI and Cincy Jungle. Love that. Hey, so we're 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. We're going to run down a list of some recent visits for the Cincinnati Bengals, as well as some recent headlines. And then, of course, we're going to talk about that big quarterback domino, that fell on Monday afternoon and how that would relate potentially to the Joe Burrow contract. If you're new here, welcome. You gotta, if you like what we're doing on the video side of things, if you're watching on YouTube, click the little show icon down here and subscribe to that if you would. Leave a thumbs up, smash the thumbs up, click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available. If you like watching on Facebook, you can do that on the Cincy Jungle page with about 80,000 other people. Give that page a thumbs up too, because not only are all of our podcasts and shows streaming there, but all of the headlines and stories that we post are through there too, so you can catch up on all your news that way as well. And of course, if you like the audio side of things, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all of the major ones, go give us a listen and leave us a review, hopefully a 5-star one if you could. We'd appreciate that, but we just appreciate the support and you checking us out however you are able. Let's roll through it, folks. What do you think? Where are we going to start here? Well, let's start here. This came across the wire a few days ago. I thought about taking the air for it, but didn't know, because I don't know if severity is the right word, but the vastness of this deal, this contract here. Drew Sample re-signed by the Cincinnati Bengals, low risk, potentially high reward deal. I know he has not been necessarily a fan favorite because of where he was drafted, the injuries and everything that has come with him, unfortunately. But he provides value, and there are a couple of different things that we have to keep in mind with this deal. Number one, 1-year deal, probably a minimal hit financially. Number two, Sample can do some things as an H-back as well at times. They've lined him up, particularly in preseason formations and games that haven't been much more than an exhibition. But he does have that flexibility for them, whereas maybe some of these other tight ends in which we think they are going to have interest in and draft coming up here in a couple weeks, maybe they don't have that in their toolkit, being an H-back. And then, of course, we still haven't seen the full potential of Drew Sample, I don't think, either. Be it with all the different weapons, him in there with all the different weapons, and, the injuries have just not been his friend. Obviously, the coaches like him. They think he can bring value to this system. He's just a guy that needs to stay healthy, find a niche in a role. And then, of course, the beautiful thing about this, too, is let's just say the Bengals hold off on drafting a tight end, be it into round 2, be it into round 3. Well, all of a sudden, the draft, what if the board falls a certain way and the Bengals don't get a tight end? that way, or they just feel like they don't want to reach or be absolutely desperate to get a tight end. That's where this move makes a lot of sense. I know he hasn't been, there's a little bit of a chuckle when potentially this signing comes through, but I still think he can bring some good value to the team, especially if he stays healthy. That's the big key. I think he can be kind of a little bit of a movable piece. He can add the element of blocking and be a guy that I think can bring some things to the table for the Bengals. Just got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy, but he is back on a 1-year deal. Obviously, minimal financial hit for them, and I think it's just a smart move. A guy they're familiar with, and a guy that fills out the tight end room if some things happen. Maybe even if the Bengals do get a tight end, they're thinking of double dipping. Maybe they get one on either night 1 or night 2, and then they're looking in the later rounds of the draft, and they're not getting a guy, and all of a sudden, oh man, we don't have Drew Sample in the back pocket here. Or they feel that, they would be reaching for a second tight end later in the draft as opposed to taking best player available because they didn't make this signing here with Drew Sample. So that's where all of this makes sense. Drew Sample back with the Bengals on a 1-year deal. I'm sure he's happy about that in some respects. Obviously, this was kind of the period where he probably felt like he was going to be going for a big, his next big contract, but the injuries and everything else kind of stood in his way of that. So he is back with the Bengals on a 1-year deal. Let's roll on here. This is a guy that got a little bit of, I don't know if hate's the right word, but he got a little bit of criticism at the end of last year. And I don't know that it was really all that warranted. Evan McPherson, some concerns about the missed extra points. And, he was a guy that continues to still hit big kicks in the big games in the postseason. And his goal in going into his 3rd year, a guy who has been incredibly important to the Bengals' success, vital. His offseason goal is to go from, quote, good to great. That is his goal for number 2. Evan McPherson, Money Mac, whatever nickname you want to give him. But you can see, look at this. I pinned this story in the live chat here. McPherson sends the Bengals to the Super Bowl. He just made big kick after big kick, particularly as a rookie. But here you go here via Bengals.com. McPherson stated he is, quote, just finding little ways to be great. I feel like I'm good, but I don't think I'm great. Just finding ways to improve that consistency via Jeff Hobson. And there was a little bit of a speed bump late in the year last year with those extra points, and extra points, as we all know, are not gimmies anymore in the NFL. So that's just, he's fine tuning some things. And then you look here, in order to take that jump, what is he doing this offseason? Quote, what I'm working on more this year is maybe more high stress situations, control my heartbeat, control my breathing. And from there, all my training takes over. That's a really interesting dynamic to what his training is. And that is, you hear, especially more recently, about the importance of, or the rise in interest in sports psychology, therapy for pro athletes. And obviously with social media, with cameras everywhere, the in-home watching experience and everything. All eyes are on, and it's not just football. It's all major professional sports, collegiate sports. These guys are under high pressure situations, and you have to figure a lot of these guys are in their early 20s, mid 20s. And so they need to find ways to deal with that. And, this is an exciting football team. Evan McPherson's still a really young guy, and he's had to kick in high pressure, big game situations so many times in his career. So he's really working that's, knock on wood here, that's what's going to continue for the Bengals. So he needs to work on managing that in his own mind, he says, and that is what he is doing right now this offseason. And that's one of his emphases this offseason in terms of preparing and improving upon an already really good career. A guy that the Bengals may be leaning on a little bit more heavily this year than initially anticipated, because I think they wanted to bring back Samaje Perine. Well, I know they wanted to bring back Samaje Perine, but Perine wanted to get maybe a little bit more of a high-profile role and found that in Denver, apparently. Trayvion Williams preparing to seize his opportunity in the backfield. So Trayvion Williams, a guy who made a couple of nice plays late last year, particularly picking up some slack in the kick return game. I think it was Tennessee. He had a couple of nice plays in that big win. So Trayvion Williams is preparing to seize his opportunity in the Bengals backfield, whether that's RB2, RB3. Obviously, a lot of moving parts with the Joe Mixon situation here. But again, this is via Jeff Hobson of Bengals.com. Quote, in years past, it's been kind of scratching and clawing just to stay on the team. Now there's a bigger opportunity with a little opening in the running back room, a bigger role, a bigger adjustment. I think I'm ready to make that adjustment. And you see here, Justin Hill, the running backs coach, says he's reliable. He's unselfish. Of Trayvion Williams, you like that. He prepares week in, week out like he's going to be the starter. So Trayvion Williams, a guy that was a late round pick, but a guy that I think the Bengals staff really likes. You see, I had a question here. Michael Clark from Facebook said, when do you think they draft a running back? That is the big unknown at this point. I wish I had a crystal ball to really look at that. Right now, I think they like Trayvion Williams and what he could bring as a backup option. They have a lot to figure out at the running back position in Joe Mixon this year. Joe Mixon does not take a pay cut. You know, if you want to call it a contract restructure, some people don't like to say that. It's basically a pay cut based on the cap hit and the salary that he has set for this year. You know, the Bengals have some tough decisions. If you've been kind of keeping up with that, we've tried not to we've tried not to push out legal stuff all the time on this show, but he was that charge from after the Buffalo, or right before the Buffalo Bills playoff game, I guess, that keeps hanging around, and an ever-evolving situation. And then he had the other situation with his sister and his sister's boyfriend and all kinds of different things. So we don't exactly know what the Bengals' plans are. There was not really a strong ringing endorsement by Katie Blackburn at the owners' meetings about a month or so ago when they asked her about him and being the starter, but he's under contract. He's with the Bengals. He is the presumed starter, I guess, at this point in time. If you're asking me right now, where do they draft a running back? Again, there's two schools of thought. If it's no Mixon's not in the plans, I think it's round 2. If it is, we're not sure, or Mixon's going to be kind of still our get the lion's share of the carries here, I would say by the conclusion of night 2. Probably round 4. When you look at the Bengals, how they draft running backs, traditionally their starting running backs come in round 2. They're big, the guys who are going to get the bulk of the carries going forward. Guys who are going to compete are usually round 4. You think back to Rudy Johnson. I think Curtis Keaton, a guy who competed with Rudy Johnson, I think he was a 4th round pick as well. And then, guys like Trayvion Williams, Rodney Anderson, Jay Finley, who never materialized with the team. Those are guys that were, round 5, 6, 7. So, I mean, they could look at a guy who just falls maybe because of an injury or something like that. They could look on late day 3 for another supplemental piece. But I would say by the conclusion of night 2, the Bengals are going to have a running back of some form in some capacity. But good question there. And we'll talk more about that on Wednesday's show. We're probably going to do listener questions live on Friday as well. So you'll want to, keep it tuned in. Hey, what's up, Dwight? Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for the compliment there. And Scott also asked there, will Mixon be a Bengal this year? We'll see. We will see. There are some things that tell me he is not going to be with the Cincinnati Bengals this year, but the Bengals have been traditionally a loyal franchise in a lot of different ways. Mixon has been one of the most productive running backs in team history, so it would be a very difficult business decision to make for the team for sure. Honestly, neither will really surprise me. I mean, I guess there'd be a surprise factor in each decision, but it wouldn't be absolutely shocking. I think that if they stick with Mixon, they are comfortable with the legal stuff that's going on, and they feel that he can continue to be a productive back. He still is he's going to be, I think, 27. So it's not like he's 30 or 31 years old right now. With 10 years of running back experience in the league, he's still in his mid to late 20s there. So he's a guy that may still have quite a bit of tread left on the tires there. But, there's also the money factor, this off-field stuff that's happening, that they have to weigh all of that. So I think we're going to have a really clear answer in just about 2 weeks. They're going to see how that draft plays out, who's available, and then once we see how that class shapes up, we're going to have a really clear idea as to what's going on with number 28. Let's keep moving, though. I've been going a little long on some of these, so we're gonna keep scrolling through here to make sure that we get to all kinds of different stories and information for you. This is kind of a cool story here. Former Bengals wide receiver, one of my personal favorite guys that played for the Bengals in recent history, Mohamed Sanu. Fun player, a guy who really did a lot of different things. Obviously had a hell of an arm, throwing the ball, caught the ball, tough. And you see some of the big wins that occurred in his career when he was, with the Bengals in that 2012 through 2015 cycle there. He was a guy that was just involved in a lot of big wins there. Tough across the middle, big guy, strong, great asset and supplemental piece to the offense, and got paid well by the Atlanta Falcons, and then went on to the Patriots as well. So he made a nice career for himself. But he is using his platform to give back to Sierra Leone, and he and his mother have partnered with Develop Africa to build a new community center out there. So really cool story, really cool work, and it's always good to see. Him and former Bengals doing such great community work, whether it's locally or internationally like this. Quote, there are a lot of talented people that are intelligent people as well that live in Sierra Leone. They don't have the means to study or have access to the internet or even a computer. Building this computer lab and a community center will be big for the area and the town. It's just going to help those youths tremendously. And of course, this is it's a nonprofit aimed at empowering the people of Africa by, quote, breaking the cycle of poverty. I believe there also is a GoFundMe to help. There's a GoFundMe page as well. I'm going to put this in the link for you all to check out if you want to support what he's doing there. Pretty cool stuff. And we're going to try and promote that how we can there. But really cool story there. If you get a chance, read it on Cincy Jungle, other platforms as well. And here is the GoFundMe link from Mohamed Sanu, building a community center, computer lab, and all of that in Sierra Leone in Africa. Really cool story. Let's get in, not too much quite yet in terms of spring workouts, but the Bengals are conducting those. Two notable absences, and they could be for two very different reasons. Jonah Williams and T. Higgins, two of the more important players, or have been two of the more important players on offense for the Cincinnati Bengals the past couple of years, are not present for the Bengals' start of the offseason workout program. Now, we think we've got a clear reason why Jonah Williams is not going to be showing up, and that is because he and his agent have publicly requested a trade in the wake of the Orlando Brown Jr. signing through free agency and his subsequent move/competition at right tackle. It doesn't seem like a lot of teams have been biting, at least not offering up what the Bengals are hoping for if they were going to trade Jonah Williams. So again, like the Mixon situation, I would predict that if Jonah Williams is going to be moved by the Bengals, it's going to be in a couple of weeks, because that frenzy that you see in free agency at the start of free agency, that kind of picks back up again during the draft, because people are offering up potentially picks for that weekend, and maybe next year, that sort of thing. So I would expect the Bengals potentially to if they're going to deal him, that it would be from on that weekend. That's my guess. Maybe Captain Obvious in me saying that, but I just think teams will really kind of ramp up the calls and everything as the board falls certain ways and all kinds of different dynamics. So he is not there, and T. Higgins is not there either for the offseason workout program, and he is in the market for a new contract. So we don't know exactly. Of course, he's entering the final year of his 4-year contract. So, it could be just that he's, playing it cautious, not, and as they work out certain things, maybe that's going to be coming here. But the Bengals last couple weeks, they've really been teasing us with a potential T. Higgins extension. They talked about his jersey change to number 5, and they promoted the hell out of that. They did, wide receiver group, tribute videos or, shout out videos of the group, including T. Higgins. They did a clip of T. Higgins talking about playing in the snow in Buffalo and all kinds of different things. And it was all kind of right in a row. So I don't know if they're toying with us. I don't know if there's a big announcement on the way. Our guy Zim Hude, who's pretty well connected with a lot of different people, mentioned that he thinks that the deal is done or close to being done. So we're waiting to kind of get confirmation from the team and an announcement there. But again, it also said there was no sign of Tyler Boyd or Jamar Chase, but obviously, I think everything's fine there. But again, we always have a really good turnout from our guys, is the quote from Zach Taylor. Our season's been running long here for over the last couple of years. I'm sure there'll be some guys who are a little bit of routine wherever they're at for another couple of weeks. That's generally pretty normal. So not a ton of worries from the head coach of the Bengals there, as a couple of big players on offense are not quite there yet for spring off-season workouts for the Cincinnati Bengals. Getting some more people joining in the live stream. Welcome. Hopefully you've been catching up with everything we've been talking about here. And this is another big thing. The Bengals are all of a sudden facing a lot of different things with some high price tags, aren't they? Really, the last, 12 to 18 months would be at the indoor practice facility, the temporary practice facility, renovations at the stadium, obviously the big extensions for Burrow, Higgins, and others looming. And now you've got the talk of a new stadium. Well, regardless of what's going to happen with a new stadium or renovations of a new stadium, the Bengals have made it clear they do not want a roof at Paycor Stadium. And I think a lot of fans don't want that. What's up? I think this is my buddy Will chiming in there. What's up, Will? I don't know that a lot of fans would want a roof either. Purists, AFC North, AFC Central, traditionalists, kind of like myself, I guess. When you look at the scope of the division, every single team plays outside. So you may like that, you may hate that, but it brings the grittiness to the division, the toughness to the division that has kind of been what it's been about, right? So I think, as longer time fans probably aren't as enamored with the idea of a dome as opposed to, an open air stadium, maybe something with a retractable roof. I don't know. There's all kinds of different options, but the Bengals, of course, now, as you're looking at Paul Brown Stadium being, 22, 23 years old now at this point. I guess not Paul Brown Stadium anymore, Paycor Stadium, that being over 2 decades old, and they've done some improvements over time. But here you go right here. We're not asking for a new stadium, and we don't think a new stadium needs to be part of the conversation. We don't need a dome. Aaron Herzig, a Taft Stettinius and Hollister attorney who represents the Bengals, told the Business Courier, quote, "We don't think those make sense here. We need meaningful investment in Paycor Stadium starting now. That will save money in the long run. We think the reasonable approach is to upgrade and maintain Paycor Stadium." And I think that is probably what they are going to do. And as technology gets better and construction practices get improve and whatnot, that seems to be an easier route, especially when you're not talking about something like what San Diego had at the old Jack Murphy Stadium that was there for decades and decades and decades. Granted, this is a 2+ decade old stadium now, but they've slowly done some renovations. And I think if you keep building on that, that's what they want. They're not looking for a dome, but again, a work in progress and negotiation in progress. And we'll see exactly what they do with their stadium going forward, Paycor Stadium going forward. All right. Before we get to some of the big news, we're going to get to, and I think we're going to run out of time to get to some division stuff, but that's okay. We've got a big piece of NFL news that's going to pertain a little bit to one of the teams in the division aside from the Cincinnati Bengals. But here's just a quick rundown of some of the guys that the Bengals have been meeting with. Jalen Duncan, an offensive lineman here. This is from Ethan DeWitt, University of Maryland tackle. Jalen Duncan, and he had a high RAS score from Math Bomb, Kentley Platt, 9.01 out of 10. So that is, that's pretty nice to see. And then he's a 4-year starter at Maryland, graded out well. He's in ESPN. Matt Miller has him ranked as a top 100 prospect. So he has a handful of suitors. You see the Ravens, Saints, Raiders, Chiefs, Titans, Cardinals, Texans, Bears, Colts, Panthers, Packers, and of course the Bengals. So you can check that out too. But Bengals are doing their due diligence at a couple of positions that they think they need to shore up, be it at backup positions or potentially starting ones. We'll see. Let's keep moving on with a couple other visits here. Gotta love the Zoom era, the virtual meeting era, because the Bengals virtually met with Boise State John Ojukwu. Hopefully I'm saying that right there. Offensive lineman. He is projected to be a day 3 pick. Here is the link for that from Cincy Jungle. But they met virtually with him. Boise State offensive tackle John Ojukwu, 6'6", 315. He's a super senior, 6 college seasons at Boise State. A super senior, 6 college seasons. He was an All Mountain West first team selection the last couple of years at left tackle. And then he was a second team All Mountain West in 2020. So a guy who's pretty decorated. Again, a pretty relatively high RAS score. You look at this, 8.73. Size grade comes out okay. Explosion comes out good. Speed grade is good. And then you look at the agility grade is great with the shuttle and 3-cone. So that's something you like to see there. Maybe a developmental guy the Bengals could look at for their at the next level there. But again, doing due diligence at offensive tackle for sure. And then here are a couple of different players that the Bengals are looking at. Jaden Hazelwood and Lance Boykin. Here's the link, and I will pin that up here. And let me share the screen for you, the story. These two guys are intriguing. Hazelwood is an Arkansas receiver, and he's the second one from that school that the Bengals have met with. He's met virtually with the Bengals, Packers, Texans, and Seahawks. The Packers doing their due diligence at wide receiver, obviously. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a competition if the Bengals and Chiefs weren't both meeting with the same player and competing for him. He was 6'3", 59 catches, 702 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. So you like the size and a little bit of production there. And then Hazelwood, a big guy, but 4'6", 640. So not a blazing guy, but a guy that can do a lot of different things and bring size and mismatches that way. You can see here he can make it as a wide receiver, 5'6" back end guy. So maybe that's where the Bengals look at him. And then, of course, Coastal Carolina cornerback Lance Boykin, 10 pass breakups, 2 interceptions last year, could play safety. So a bigger guy could play safety, special teams corner. And that's a guy, again, guy that can move around, play different stuff. Lou Anarumo likes those types of players in his secondary. So that is a player that the Bengals are also meeting with there, Lance Boykin of Coastal Carolina, defensive back. Both of those guys, late round picks probably, or mid round picks probably, that bring some upside, bring some intrigue for a roster. Do we have one more? Of course we do, because it is the local kid. And by the way, there are other meetings. Michael Mayer is another one that the Bengals are meeting with as well. You've got the local kids that the Bengals are meeting with. They're doing a local meet day. So all of those, as well as all of the many others that we've been reporting on throughout the process here. But Ivan Pace, the Cincinnati linebacker, the Bengals are looking at him. He is a specific local prospect, but they're taking a little bit of a specialized interest in him, even though the Bengals re-signed Jermaine Pratt. They're going to probably re-sign Logan Wilson, but look at this. Ivan Pace Jr., 137 tackles, 21.5 tackles for loss, and 10 sacks. Just a guy who was around the ball, tenacious, good player, and the Bengals are interested in him, and he may be a very good addition to the linebacker room, and a guy who, at least initially in the NFL, could be a niche pass rusher guy, a guy that can get some snaps in various ways. Should he find a way to be able to, should prove that he's ready to go right away. Obviously, the Bengals are deep. They would have this guy potentially waiting in the wings and, again, kind of be a rotational niche snap guy, I would presume, initially. But, productive player. He was initially at Miami of Ohio, then went to UC and had a major year last year. He is projected to be a day 3 pick because he's a little shorter, 6 feet tall, 250, and you got the, he can rush the passer, he can tackle well, all that kind of stuff, but he's not necessarily an edge defender. Is he big enough to be an in the box, off-ball linebacker like a Pratt? So there's some questions there, but what is not questioned is the production on the tape. That is for sure. So again, the Bengals meeting with a lot of tight ends, meeting with a lot of offensive tackles, and of course the others that I mentioned there specifically, as well as some local kids. Yes, Richard Ashley. I just said, as you wrote here, Michael Mayer, the Bengals did or are meeting with Michael Mayer, a guy in which they are very interested in, it would seem, as well as Dalton Kincaid. But Kincaid, the back issues, those have been cleared. Still questions there. Mayer, questions on if he's going to even make it to the Bengals at 28. A lot of people think, because of the comparisons to Jason Witten, a lot of people think that the Dallas Cowboys might be in play for him, especially when they've just lost their tight end, Dalton Schultz there. So we'll see what happens here in a couple of weeks. All right. Now, I do have the article pinned up here from Michael Mayer. I'll put that up real quick because we got to get to one last piece of news before we get out of here. So Michael Mayer is meeting with the Bengals there, as I've mentioned a couple of times, and it's today, Monday. So, and that is per Joe Danneman of Fox 19. So, a guy they are going to for sure do their due diligence on, get to know well, and I'm sure they'll be very interested in him. He's the bigger guy, obviously production, does a little bit more as an inline blocker. Kincaid is a guy that does more, down up the seam, down the sideline, kind of a little bit more of a wide receiver profile, more so than Mayer, but both guys bring an element that would be exciting to the Bengals offense. For sure. All right. And then now the big news, and this is the barometer now in which we all can probably set for a possible Joe Burrow extension. This is courtesy of Adam Schefter's Twitter account here. And you can see the picture there. Jalen Hurts reached an agreement on a 5-year, $255 million extension. Close to $180 million guarantee, $179.304 million guaranteed to be exact. But he is the highest paid player in NFL history in a deal negotiated by Nicole Lynn of Clutch Sports Group and Eagles GM Howie Roseman. But you see here, this is not the Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed, $200+ million fully guaranteed. So while the contract number, the big number, 255 is the most in history. And oh, by the way, that is, let's do the math there. $51 million a year average annual value when you go use that 255 million number. That's going to be the barometer, not the Deshaun Watson. This one is more in line with some of the other recent quarterback mega contracts we've seen, not so much the Deshaun Watson deal. And I think this is where the Bengals are going to be. And I don't want to say necessarily that Jalen Hurts will be short-lived on being the highest paid player in NFL history, but I think it's going to be, I would not be surprised if Burrow becomes that guy. But I think that this is going to be a very similar type of deal to Joe Burrow. This is also one that Lamar Jackson's undoubtedly looking at, right? I mean, a lot of these guys are looking at this deal, and this has to be the one that sets the bar right now for these young, particularly the young quarterbacks, Herbert, Burrow, that are looking for their next big payday. And I mean, you can argue too, while Hurts had an outstanding year, obviously the team's success was last year, went all the way to the Super Bowl. The Bengals' success under Joe Burrow has kind of had an extra year, unlike Hurts. So, I mean, the Bengals are going to find a way to pay Joe Burrow. That's not really a question. And I would assume that the contract is going to look pretty similar to this one. And I will full screen this thing. Let me full screen this thing so you can see it a little clearer in case you can't read the verbiage there. But again, $255 million extension. That's $51 million average annual value, including $179.3 million guaranteed to Jalen Hurts. Undoubtedly, this is going to be what a lot of quarterbacks look at going forward. But congratulations to him. Hurts has been a really cool story. He was a guy that was a second-round pick, and that was questioned because the Eagles had Carson Wentz at the time. Then he started to kind of ease in the lineup. There were some issues and there's some excitement, but there were some questions, how strong of a passer is he going to be at the next level? I mean, you could even rewind further than that. He was kind of the darling at Alabama, fell out of favor for Tua. Then he went to Oklahoma, resurrected his career, became that second round pick. Then there were some more questions, not only entering the draft, but after he kind of grabbed the starting position. And last year was kind of looked at as a do or die type of thing by some people for Jalen Hurts, where it was like, hey, is this guy going to make it as an NFL passer? Is he going to make it as the next franchise quarterback for one of the big market teams? And lo and behold, there he is, takes his team to a Super Bowl MVP-like season and gets the big contract. Now what's next? I mean, the framework's there. The framework's there for Joe Burrow. The framework's there for Lamar Jackson. The framework's there for, Justin Herbert and likely a year or two down the road, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's where this is. And again, this one falls more in line with what we've seen from Mahomes, what we've seen from, I think it was Kyler Murray, from what we saw from, I think, Russell Wilson as well. I mean, this is more in line with those deals and not the Deshaun Watson deal. So that is going to definitely be talked about between the Bengals and Joe Burrow as they continue their contract extensions, and hopefully that gets done sometime this spring. If not then this summer. The Bengals really like to hammer out those things in the summer, extensions to important players, but it already seems like they've really begun those negotiations and done some talking already throughout the winter and the spring. So let's hope that those extension announcements for Higgins, for Burrow, maybe even Logan Wilson, come soon, and the Bengals keep rolling on, going to AFC championships, Super Bowls, and hopefully hoisting Lombardi trophies going forward. I'm Anthony Cosenza. This has been the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast, catching up on Bengals news, NFL news, all kinds of different things as we march towards the NFL draft. We're going to be bringing you all kinds of draft coverage, whether it's on this show, throughout the channel, and on Cincy Jungle. We're going to have special guests, all kinds of breakdowns, probably some live streams, so you'll probably want to hang out with us. Maybe we'll even do, I know there's so many great Bengals podcasts. Maybe we'll do a synergy deal where there's just a giant room with all of us, a number of different hosts. I don't know. We haven't really planned it all out yet, but we've got some ideas of what we're looking at, special guests and everything. So thank you all for tuning in live. Thank you for listening after the fact. Appreciate you. Again, if you are new, click this little icon at the bottom of the screen there to subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available on the YouTube channel. We'll be coming out with some creative stuff coming down the pike too that you'll want to check out. Give us a thumbs up on the video if you can. Check out some of our recent shows, interviews, whether it's prospect profiles, the Orlando Brown Jr. interview, all kinds of different stuff. Go back in the archives and check out that stuff. It's pretty fun to hear some of those guys chat it up. And then, of course, you can get all the great stuff on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel through your favorite audio streamer, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Thumbs up on the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. And, of course, keep it to cincyjungle.com for our news, opinions, analysis, etc. Thanks, everybody. Happy Monday to you. And we'll be back with all kinds of stuff for you this week. Take care.